but I'm actually doing the Buzzsprout. There we go. That's the thing that my friend recommended. It's an RSS feed in which basically it'll send out your podcast to things like Podbean, Castbox, all the usual suspects. So I'm thinking about doing that because it seems like most people get most views from that sort of thing. Very rarely will people go to YouTube to watch podcasts, which is kind of weird. I thought YouTube is the best for podcasts because you can actually see
Joe
the
Rogan.
faces. Like, yeah, exactly. I have not seen or heard anything about Joe Rogan since he left for Spotify. I do not listen to podcasts on Spotify. I just don't.
Yeah, I guess I was listening to them on YouTube. So is it just apart from him, nobody's watching podcasts on YouTube? Which makes sense. That's why I think they're doing better. My one does so much better on audio because people are going for a run, they're going for a jog, they're going for a walk, and they're just like listening to something nice. Who's going to sit down and watch an hour on YouTube of just two people chatting like we're doing? So you're saying what, that the live streams do a bit better?
Yeah, the live streams seem to do better, and I'm not sure if that's because of the way the algorithm is implemented. Is if someone just joins and leaves, that counts as a view, or how it works. And for some reason, I guess more people are more likely to watch a video if it says streaming now than if it was just something else. Yeah, but on average, these live streams get between, I would say, around 80 and 120 views. And a normal video that I upload, like a podcast with someone, and this is with like a no name, right? But otherwise, that video would probably just get around 50 views. So who knows?
Wow. Who's out there? Have you got people on your side listening? I got 5 people on Instagram now.
Oh yeah, I got it said 8 a few seconds ago, and as soon as we went live, it dropped down to 3. So I guess they hated our ugly mugs.
We didn't look how they wanted us to look.
No, I don't have any simps yet. That I actually want to ask you this question. So I've noticed that I've been getting DMs now from women ever since I started doing this thing. Is this normal? Do you get that sort of attention too?
No, never.
Really?
I guess it's just you.
All right.
Well, to be 23 again. No. Yes. Well, not women who are coming on to me. Is that what's happening to you?
Yeah, it's weird.
Do they have lots of numbers after their name?
No, they don't. They're not bots as far as I'm concerned. They have a pretty good extensive Twitter history to the point where I don't have to be concerned that this is anything that it will take my information.
No woman has ever sent me a message. It's like slid into my DMs, to use the expression. I don't think in my life. Even my girlfriend doesn't want to message me.
Oh, really? That's I'm so sorry to hear that.
My family doesn't want to message me. No. So what? Come on. What is somebody saying to you then? What? Hi, you look hot.
It usually starts off with, "Hey, I love your content." Okay, cool. Hey, and I always, respond whenever someone messages me saying, "Oh yeah, cool. Thank you so much." And then it slowly starts getting flirty. One of them said, "Yeah, my friend thinks you're cute." The very basic, "My friend thinks you're cute." And I'm like, this is getting,
Wow.
like, cool. Thanks. Anyways, it's not something I'm not a online dating sort of guy. So
you are now.
I mean, I guess it's something that people are asking me about, but I wouldn't. It's just
Are you a single man, Vincent?
I am a single man, and I hope to be.
It's time to respond to these messages.
What are your thoughts on online dating, actually? Because I guess this is something that we could get the ball rolling. For me, the problem with online dating is twofold, and this is going to sound, I'm going to sound like a POS right now, and I apologize in advance. But the problem with online dating is that the things that you do get, the good things that you get, right? Emotional intimacy, you get to share a connection with somebody. The problem that I seem to have with it is that from a relationship, from my perspective, one of the things that is a requirement is, the very basic physical contact stuff. And I'm not just talking about sex, I'm talking about holding hands, kissing them, hugging them, embracing, is things that you would not do with a friend. You don't do these things with a friend. These are benefits of being in a relationship. And the other one is, of course, sex. And those two things to me seem like incredibly important in a relationship. And if those things are not in a relationship, you are being deprived. And so it seems like an online relationship is very lacking, very, very lacking.
Yeah, but that's very different to meeting somebody online, as you were talking about. You'd meet them, and then you could move to live in the same place. I suppose that's quite an American thing to even think about because of the distances. So I suppose if you're thinking like, oh, I might meet somebody who's listening to my stuff online, your first thought is they definitely don't live near me. Whereas mine is like, if that were to happen, I've been in a relationship for the last 6 years anyway. So, and I have to say that as a disclaimer in case my girlfriend watches this. But yeah, if I'm in England or something and somebody listens, it's a very, very strong possibility, almost certainty, they're within sort of 3 or 4 hours drive of me. So this online dating thing is not really a concept for me, other than online meeting someone, which again I sort of missed the boat on because I've been in a relationship for so many decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would say if it's a 6-hour drive or a 5-hour drive, I don't think that's a huge problem. But when we're talking about someone living, let's say, in Canada, that's a big problem for me. And and a lot of people seem to do it. It's become a meme now at this point that trad Catholic Twitter, traditional Catholic Twitter, they all sort of date each other, and that's something that I just can't understand. I don't know, man. I guess it's something
online. But if they're really religious, then they're not into the physical side anyway. So they're just online dating.
Yeah, that's true. They're probably waiting. Yeah, I mean, they're trads. Yeah, they're probably waiting for maybe. I think you just solved the puzzle. Actually, you just cracked it.
It does sound like a religious thing. It's the kind of thing religious people might do, but
yeah, they're always.
Think it's great. I had a girlfriend for years, and we did before this current girlfriend when I was living in France, and then I moved back to England, and we had to do long distance for like a year, and it was really a disaster. It was really horrible. So I totally get what you're saying. It wasn't nice at all. It's not just the physical side. I think the psychological side, being apart, not knowing each other's friends, that kind of thing. I think it makes it impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. I feel like I think I'm obligated to show these things, right? If Yoo-hoo, everyone is saying hello. No, Ronnie and Queen Fabi are saying hello. Basically, they're saying Yoo-hoo.
That's nice of them. Well, I want to know more about Ronnie and Queen Fabi.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Ronnie does her own streams, actually. She streams Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I haven't played video games in forever, but if you're into video games, hey, go check out those streams. And Queen Fabi is a chaotic evil. You don't want to meet her. She's evil. But anyways, by the way, show yourself out. You do your own podcast, right? What is it? We should have done that at the very beginning. We're 7 minutes in, and we haven't chilled you out. All right. So what is it that you do, Mr. Golds?
I am a journalist and documentary maker for the BBC. Well, I say it like I work for the BBC, but I'm more of a freelancer. But I made a documentary where I went to see an exorcist, which Vincent has seen. And I have a podcast called On the Edge with Andrew Gold. It's on YouTube. So go and follow me so I can have as many subscribers as Vincent has.
I mean, you probably get more. You get way more traffic though on your video stuff than I can possibly imagine. So you're more well known than I am actually in that regard. But
neither of us are well known. We're no ones, Vincent. Nobody knows who we are.
We're no ones. I just do this for fun, at the very least. I find
do it for a career, which is the saddest part.
I recently, I gotta finish that thing. So since I passed 1,000 subscribers, I can do memberships now.
Yeah, you can do ads.
I can do ads. I'm doing ads now, and I've made a total of $4. So that's cool.
$4 is okay.
Yeah, it's not bad, huh?
Yeah.
So Christmas money. And then the one thing I wanted to have it ready for the stream actually, but I didn't. They're forcing me to upload a video introducing channel memberships. So I wanted to just activate it. I uploaded the little pictures for the thing, but no, you need to also upload a video introducing it. So I'm like, all right, okay, I guess I'll work on that.
That's just Patreon, isn't it? I suppose you can't really have both, or can you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you can. So I also have a Patreon, but there's this YouTube mechanism itself in which you can have channel memberships from YouTube itself. So that's pretty cool. So I would be getting revenue from YouTube memberships as well as Patreon. So far, I have 2 Patreons contributing. Am I allowed to give that information? A total, I'm getting like $10 a month. So that's not bad. Yeah, I mean,
I got to £101, which is like $130, $140.
No shit! Wow. Oh wow, that's impressive.
It's only been going in like a month or so, but it stopped suddenly. It was going up and up, and then it just suddenly completely plateaued. But I would worry about getting the membership on YouTube because you're sort of like, I don't know, is it spreading it too thin? It's like, oh, there's some people on the YouTube. Maybe that doesn't matter, but I feel like I want to have them all in one place. But maybe that makes no difference, actually.
The subscriber benefits are the same. So maybe in a way that sort of just puts them all together, because the idea is like if you're a 1 tier subscriber, you get your benefits is you starting in 2021 when I start having credits on my videos, your name will appear there. Afterwards, you can also I think like the highest one you get you can like join me on a podcast or something like that. And it seems like I linked them together in that way, but maybe you're right. Maybe spreading them out too thin will
Don't know.
sort of losing that whole community aspect of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I go to Patreon, I can send a post and it goes to everyone in one tier. Whereas
Mhm.
if they're also on YouTube, but maybe that makes no difference. I really don't know.
Do you have a Discord?
No. Should I?
I,
What is that?
I, oh wow. Okay, so Discord is this new thing. I just found out about this recently. Because even though I'm pretty young, I am way like I'm not in on this whole thing, right? I still don't know what TikTok is or what that even
Right.
means. All I know is
Yeah.
that it's a Chinese problem.
Yeah.
And apparently Discord is this website. No, sorry. You see, I already got it wrong. It's not even a website. It's like you can download it. It's kind of like Skype, I guess,
Mm.
in which you make an account and you can join a bunch of what are called Discord servers. So Atheist Republic, for instance, they have their own Discord server. You join them, you can chat. It's like a chat room where you just talk with everybody who's a fan of Discord server. And apparently, a lot of YouTube channels have it because it is one of the best ways of creating engagement. Because one, you got the community aspect of it, right? So you get a bunch of people together who have similar interests, who watch this shit. Maybe they watch it every once in a while and they say, oh, there's a Discord channel for it, I'll join it. So they join the Discord, and then because they're in the Discord and they're talking with other people who also watch the channel, they form a community. And as they're forming this community and they're forming this bond, it actually increases the likelihood that they will watch your YouTube channel. And so in a way, you're creating a community, sure, but two, you're also increasing the level of engagement for your channel because that community increases the likelihood that they will watch you.
And you all just chat together?
Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. I had no idea what Discord was, or I knew what it was actually for like a bit, but I never understood it really in the same way that I currently don't understand TikTok. But ever since Atheist Republic launched theirs, I've been sort of dabbling in it, and now I'm actually kind of addicted to Discord. It's pretty fun.
That is cool, actually. I need to watch one of yours and see how it goes, and then I'm going to understand it better.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'll invite you to my own personal Discord so you can like give it a go, get a feel of what it actually is.
So why are we doing this one then instead of just doing a Discord thing?
We could actually. Why are we doing this, huh?
What's the advantage of doing a YouTube live stream? Do more people come to the Discord?
Oh, can you even live stream? Yeah, you can live stream on Discord. Oh, wait.
Oh, is it usually just a chat thing?
It's more like a chat room. Yeah, like as far as I'm concerned, you don't have on the Discord like the original content creator, right? So like Armin Navabi, for instance, the founder of Atheist Republic, is not actually in the Discord himself, and it's not a way like you can't watch videos on Discord. All it is a chat room, right? That's all it is. So it's mainly just like a hub for your fans, but there's not much interaction that I could probably do with them within the actual Discord itself, because it's just a chat room. Like I could probably hop in and chat with them for a bit. I think I could also live stream on Discord actually too, in the same way that I'm live streaming here. I might be able to connect StreamYard to it, but for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, it's mainly just like a chat room, like a hub for fans. I think. Oh,
I don't feel like my listeners. I think if I said to them like, "Hey, and by the way, so is that how it would be? Discord was originally meant for gamers," says Ronnie. That's a good. Well, there you go. Ronnie loves games. I play FIFA. That's the only one I play.
Wait, do you really? What do you play it on?
Yeah, I haven't played it. I haven't got anything now. A friend of mine has an Xbox. So I went around last week and played him at that. I used to have a PS3, and once I get my act together and move back to England, I'm going to eventually get a PS5 and play FIFA on it and beat you at it. No kidding.
I'm not even joking right now. I will destroy you in FIFA. I'm not even like I am. I look like I'm fuming inside right now that you even said that. Because
I think I'll win. Because you've probably got all the gadgets and all the techniques and stuff of the game. But I've played a lot of football in my life, so I think I can use that knowledge to win.
Okay. I gotta send a very quick text message right now. You're a Hotspurs fan, right?
Yeah, Tottenham. No one says a Hotspurs. That's such an American thing to say.
No, I don't even know why I said Hotspurs. We say Tottenham. I don't know why I
Oh,
said Hotspurs in the
yeah, Tottenham or Spurs. No one's in
um
my room anymore. Look at that. I had lots though.
yeah, I'm a Manchester City fan. We are completely we are awful this season. Awful, awful. I might have to
Yeah.
start saying Fraudiola.
Well, it's all cycles, isn't it? It all goes up and down.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, so anyways, what are your thoughts on I'm trying to think, like, there's so many things that we could talk about because one, your line of thinking is very interdisciplinary. In fact, that's kind of the modus operandi of your podcast.
Mm.
So I'm thinking, because we just, maybe we should start on the topic of the video at hand, which is journalism itself, because you yourself, you're a journalist and you're a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so we could probably have a conversation surrounding around there. So what are your thoughts on the current state of journalism? And maybe we should compartmentalize it actually, because there
Mm.
seems to be a difference between American journalism and UK journalism. What are your,
Mm.
because I like UK, for instance, they have a specific government funded organization, the BBC, which the United States does not have that. It's very much private. So what are your thoughts on journalism from the UK version and journalism from the American version?
Mm. So what I've always thought about the difference between the two is we tend to have quite neutral TV channels. And neutral is obviously impossible to achieve, but they're supposed to be Channel 4 and BBC are the main ones, ITV, Channel 5, but they all, of course, the BBC is part funded or maybe entirely funded by part of the government, but the government is supposed to have no say in the output.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have is like 4 or 5, and then there's Sky News as well, news channels that are all supposed to be as neutral as possible. And I've always thought the American news channels are obviously very partisan. And I think we have the other way around with newspapers. Whereas, so in America, you've got like the newspapers seem to be a little bit more respectable, whereas our newspapers are really partisan. So that's the difference. It's like the newspapers in the UK very partisan. The TV channels in America are very partisan. But the news at the moment is that Murdoch, who owns Fox News, the Australian fellow who's about 150, is setting up a channel to rival the other channels in the UK, which is going to be a very Fox News kind of thing. And nobody knows how that's going to go down. And there's another channel, I think it's called like GB News or something like that, that is setting up as well next year. So we've got 2 new channels that are supposed to be quite Fox Newsy, which is going to completely disturb everything. And I imagine the problem with that is it's going to move ones like Channel 4 News further left. And then you're going to have these, it's going to be like MSNBC versus Fox News, that kind of thing in the UK, which we haven't had up till now. There were always arguments, about, the BBC has a pro-Israel or an anti-Israel bias. And, and I think that, to me, that's evidence the BBC is doing its job quite well, actually. The fact that both sides seem to think that it has this huge bias. I think the situation with journalism in general, I think what's happened is, like, obviously with social media, with more accessibility to things like cameras, to things like laptops and travel and stuff, everybody can become a sort of journalist themselves. And the problem with that is that the whole point of journalism is you're supposed to be neutral. You're supposed to be impartial. You're supposed to just sort of either not have a view and just report what's happening, or at least understand both sides. And I think the issue is everybody with a camera now, everybody with Twitter, everybody is going out and, like, they've all got a view, and it's become trendy and fashionable for journalism to basically be activism. And there should never be activism in journalism. That's my view of it. Some people think journalism and activism are intrinsically linked, but I just think that goes against everything I think journalism should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you concerned that the high level of partisanship that journalism has in the United States, because of mainly like the rise of Fox News and this whole gotcha journalism level, 24/7 news cycle that really completely shift the paradigm, the news paradigm, Walter Cronkite versus what we're dealing with now. Are you concerned that that's going to happen now in the UK?
Yeah.
And do you think that's bad?
Yeah, that's a bad thing, and it's I think it's about to happen. And it's the environment has been shaping that for a while now. Everybody's an expert now, and nobody actually, takes real experts, seriously.
Mhm.
That's something that I think has been going on in America a little bit longer. But I mean, you've always had this thing in America of the American dream, and I remember studying a lot about that and literature and stuff. It was a huge thing that we studied in literature. And that was always this thing about the individual. That's why you guys have this thing about freedom of, like, even when things that I think, because of my upbringing, I feel like, guns are ridiculous. Why does anyone have a gun? But I get it, because there's the individual freedom thing. It's something I never used to get, but it's just a thing that in America you have a different culture, and you have this thing of, like, I have an individual freedom, and it sort of spawns more individualism in everything, right? And so that kind of thing I'm already talking about, which is happening all around the world, of everybody becoming more selfish, everybody becoming a little bit more self-obsessed. Everyone had their own MySpace page. They've now got their own Facebook page. They have a voice suddenly, despite not necessarily being qualified and certainly not being neutral enough. That kind of individualism, I think, has created that kind of thing. I think you could look, the alternative is the other side, collectivism. That's not great for news channels either. That's the other extreme. Yeah, so I think that's been going on for those reasons. I think America was always quick to adopt that kind of individualistic way of looking at the world. Everyone has their own opinion, very opinionated. And that's the charm of America, and it's maybe also its downfall. It's both sides. And I think, it's such a globalized world now. So things that happen in America, like BLM and all of that stuff, it becomes wrapped up in UK politics to such an extent now that, they started taking the knee in sports in the UK, which is a very American thing. It's not that we can't protest racism. It's just that is a very American BLM symbol. And it's strange to me that we've taken that exact symbol up. But it's like everything's one now. So yeah, it won't surprise me to see in the next few years the UK move towards something that I think we've not wanted, something we've disparaged for years looking at America, which is that sort of Fox News kind of news.
Mhm. Yeah, the sense of anti-expertise seems to have originated as an American phenomenon with the rise of people like Rush Limbaugh, in which he explicitly stated that there must be some level of distrust amongst the institutions, the academic institutions and the governmental institutions themselves as well. And for the longest time, because of that, this was generally something that you would only see among the American conservatives. But recently, we're also seeing it start to manifest itself in other domains. And that could be maybe because the high level of partisanship that the internet, as you said, seems to have brought out in us, where now everybody has an individualistic voice. And yeah, as you said, individualism is very much an American phenomenon. You can read the works of Benjamin Franklin in his autobiography, where he talks about republicanism. And then you can also recognize that other societies tend to be more collectivistic, whether you look at Scandinavian countries or Nordic countries. And so there's this clash of cultures that we're dealing with at this point. And I'm fascinated to try to find out, in what direction are we going to go in? Because one of the things that is really concerning me about this anti-expertise sentiment is that if there becomes an increasingly growing distrust in the institutions, in the academic institutions specifically, then we could be looking at, and this is going to sound very cataclysmic, and I'm not saying I believe this, but this is certainly a possibility, we could be looking at the downfall of established knowledge, and now we could be looking at something in which people prioritize their own personal point of view, so much so over the experts, right? So we know how this manifests itself on the right, where it almost seems like it's a political position just to be anti-climate change more than anything else. But you also see it sort of manifest itself on the left with the rise of postmodernism, in which they strictly say things like the scientific method is ill-equipped to deal with reality. In fact, what even is reality? Our socialization plays a much heavier role into telling us what is and is not true. And so now we're seeing anti-expert opinion manifest itself on the left, where originally it was just on the right. And huge problem if the one thing that we need to cherish above all else, right? Like collectively, the one thing that at the very least we could say that we all agree on is that there is a truth out there, and we should actively try to get towards that truth. But that seems to not even be the case at this point. This is why I'm very vocal against things like critical race theory or postmodernism or applied theory. Very, very dangerous sort of territory that we're going in. And I'm concerned that it's not going to get any better. Do you feel like now that we're on the topic of like this sort of woke stuff, do you think it's getting better? Do you think it's getting worse? I'm not optimistic.
It's really, really hard. It's really hard because I'm so dead against that sort of Foucault stuff. I'm so against the postmodernism of what's taken over the left right now. At the same time, I've always felt like there isn't necessarily one truth. And I don't mean that in the way that they do, but I don't want to be someone who says, this is the truth, that's the fact, facts don't have feelings, Ben Shapiro. Although I agree, facts don't have feelings. But for example, if I have an argument with my girlfriend, I think it's really important to be able to go back and sort of bend in some ways how I really feel, concede points that I don't necessarily think are right or wrong, and for the other person to do that as well, to be able to come towards each other. Because if you've got 70 million people in England, or you've got 7 billion people in the world, and we want a system that works for everyone, that's never going to happen. So everybody, it's hard enough having a relationship with just one person, right? It's almost impossible. Nobody can do it. So how do you have a relationship with, 350 million people in the US? How do you possibly have a relationship that works for everyone without people wanting the equivalent of a divorce? So it's so tough. It's so impossible. So I think to some extent, you do sometimes, and I don't mean bending facts ever, but you do have to come towards each other. I believe there is not really one truth. I don't think there's one. I'm talking about subjective things, of course. I'm not talking about gender science, I'm talking just about opinion. Some people think it's better to have a society that is a little bit more socialist. Some people prefer capitalist. And the funny thing is you don't necessarily see a correlation. It's not the richest who want capitalism necessarily. There are plenty of rich people who prefer socialism, plenty of poor people who love the idea of capitalism. So, I think on the one hand, that would be my point. On the other hand, I totally agree with what you're saying with this like bending of truth on both sides when it's actual fact. That is scary. And I studied English literature at university, and that is the epicenter, as far as I'm concerned, of a lot of this way of thinking. And I'm happy I'm not there now, because this was 8 or 9, 10 years ago now. But it was, that's been on the rise in the humanities and English literature and stuff for 20, 30, 40 years. The whole point of English literature, as I remember it, was to study books and find a meaning that the author may or may not have intended, and to then go into your class next week and tell your professor, like, hey, that thing where he says the red dog? That's not because the dog was angry, and it's not because the dog was communist, but it was this incredibly, in the 15th century, some people used to have red hair, and those were the people. You find the most ridiculous theory you can find and apply it and pretend you think that is what the author thought. So you get trained in that for 3, 4, 5 years. I have friends of mine who are professors now in literature, and they tend to be very woke, because they're doing that thing of empathizing, which on the surface is a very good thing to do, I think. It trains you for being able to argue, to debate, to understand, to empathize. And that's what I feel it did for me. I was reading all these books and going, hey, the author meant that. And anyone who's seen those letters from, I don't know who it was, maybe it was Ernest Hemingway or J.D. Salinger. There was somebody who had these great letters where they responded to people who had said, like, oh, did you really mean this or that? And they were saying, like, not at all. Of course not. I just wrote a book. Mm-hmm. So that's, in this metaphor, what I'm saying is, the writing the book is the facts. It doesn't have feelings. And we want to give it feelings. We do it to dogs. We do it to animals. We want to anthropomorphize everything. We give feelings where they don't exist. And I think that's vital for humans. I think we need to have that inside of us. I just think that most of us, including myself at times, we don't have the capabilities, the faculties to be able to actually do it in a nuanced way and look at both sides.
Yeah. The thing about admiring different perspectives and the differences in interpretation, I think that is all very incredibly important within the humanities. Well, specifically, it's important when we're talking about reading literature or reading fiction books, stuff around that nature, interpreting movies in a different way. I think that's cool. I think that's perfectly fine. But the problem is that when you start applying this level of thinking towards the material world, towards physics, towards chemistry, then we have a huge problem. And there was an article written a few months ago in the Wall Street Journal by a theoretical physicist, Lawrence Krauss, where he said that this idea, this deconstructivism, this sort of stuff, it was always in the humanities. And as scientists, we all looked at it, we recognized it seems kind of weird, but whatever, so long as it remains there in the Department of Queer Studies, we don't have to be concerned about it too much. Now we're seeing in recent years it pestilentially spread over to the hard sciences, towards physics, and now we have a problem. And so this is what I'm thinking of. The reason why it's so big now is probably because we let it run amok. We didn't pay too much attention to it, and now we're dealing with the ramifications of that. So maybe we have an obligation. Maybe we should start speaking up again about it now, because if we continue to ignore it and we continue to let these articles be published in some of the most respected scientific journals out there, the idea of decolonizing math, of decolonizing science, of shutting down STEM, if we don't say something about it now, it's only going to get so much worse. So in the same way that we didn't do anything back then, and now it's getting worse. Back then we said, oh, so long as it's not in science, the fact that we didn't say anything and it's now in science is evidence of the fact that maybe we should say something now. Otherwise, not only will it remain in science, it will take over science.
It's so hard. I mean, going back to the metaphor I was using about, like, imagine the world being a relationship and everybody's trying to get on. And if you were in a relationship, particularly like a long and complex one, and there's some type of behavior that you're finding worrying about your girlfriend or boyfriend, and you tell them that, hey, I don't want this anymore, cut that out. It depends on the person, but they're very unlikely to cut it out. And they're very likely, I think, to be moved further towards whatever it was they were doing. I believe thoroughly. I mean, no, I believe that Donald Trump is not somebody who is fit to lead a country. I don't think he's intellectually fit to do so. I don't know whether he's done well or not. I don't know how much power one actually has in charge. But he's not somebody I respect as a statesman. But I believe thoroughly that he was voted in as a protest because people on the other side, white working class people from Kentucky, it might be, who are struggling to put food on the table, are being told that they're privileged. So I believe strongly that the woke movement is what put Donald Trump into power. So if what you're saying is like, okay, we stand up and say to woke people, no more, this isn't right. I don't believe they're just going to go away. I think it's going to make them stronger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be the case. And you could even make an argument that someone like Donald Trump, who is in power, who I'm not a fan of, and anybody who watches my anything that I said about the man knows I'm not. I happily voted Biden. But the argument to be made is that, well, yeah, sure, Trump, he has a lot of problems, but at the very least, he's going against this woke stuff. At the very least, he's withholding federal funding from institutions that teach things like critical race theory. Isn't that a good thing? But my problem with that argument is that, wait a minute, if the whole reason why we're dealing with the issues of climate change right now, because it's so politicized, is because Al Gore did politicize it back in the day. He did politicize it. It's something that shouldn't have been politicized. There's an overwhelming scientific consensus among it. It should not have been politicized, and now we're dealing with the ramifications of that. Maybe it's the same thing here, where because critical race theory, I think, is something very nefarious. I don't like it. I also don't like Trump. But if Trump is saying, hey, this thing is bad, and we should be actively against it, and you know what? I'm going to institute some of my powers to make sure that I try to kill it. The problem with this is that maybe the same thing's going to happen. Now people on the left are going to look at something like critical race theory, and they're going to associate it with being pro-Trump. And because of that, because we have that knee-jerk reaction to immediately dislike something that Donald Trump likes, we will dislike it. And I think this is especially true of just the general population. We need to keep in mind that most people don't know what's going on with the whole woke crowd. Maybe they know, maybe somewhat, like, oh yeah, people seem to get offended pretty easily, but I don't really, who cares? It doesn't affect me directly. Most people, George over here doesn't care too much about critical race theory. He has a statistics final to worry about on Friday, right? Timothy has food to put on the plate for his family. He doesn't have time. You and I are in a privileged position to be able to do extensive research on these issues, and so we recognize how dangerous they actually are, but most people don't. And so these people who have to worry about going to the 9-to-5 job, who have to worry about making sure that their marriage stays intact and they don't get a divorce, these people will listen to something like critical race theory and go, oh, what is it? Oh, it's anti-racist? I mean, yeah, I'm against racism. Of course I support it. Who doesn't support it? Oh, Donald Trump doesn't support it. Of course Donald Trump doesn't support it. And then so they'll lay in their support for critical race theory. That's what I'm worried will happen. if someone like Donald Trump politicizes it. So the first thing that I would say we need to do with something like postmodernism or critical race theory or any of these nefarious ideologies that have manifested themselves in the past 5 years, first thing we need to do is culturally, as a culture, we need to look at this and say no. So that's why I'm glad that there are podcasts like yours, speaking out against this sort of thing. That's why I'm glad that there are public intellectuals like Glenn Loury and John McWhorter speaking out against this thing, because that is cultural change. The second we get the big man upstairs, not God, but the president, the big man upstairs changing these sort of things, I feel like that's good. That's going to cause way more problems than solutions.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's partly why, I mean, my podcast is, it's not overtly political. It will be like every few episodes, there'll be someone on who is political and will usually be against these kind of woke ideas, these dangerous social justice, whatever you call them, ideas. Because I don't think, I think a lot of podcasts that are just anti-woke, I think they're great and they can work and be really helpful as well. But I just think it's going to be very hard to bring someone in who's maybe on the fence. You're not going to convince somebody who is really woke. It's impossible. I tried to do that to a friend recently, and she told me that there's a Holocaust going on in America right now against Black people. So, and then that I'm a racist for even suggesting that there was an issue with this. So you can't convince people who are already really far woke. The problem, as you say, is that those people, it's probably only 10% of people, but they actually have a really, really strong influence in the way that companies with their sort of woke capitalism are working now. And that's scary if, as you say, the people who are just going about their days don't realize it. So for me, that's part of why I have this podcast, where I'll have, a survivor of some sort of situation, or somebody who's a psychopath, or the woman who remembers every moment of her life, just like fun, interesting, or tragic, or whatever. And then there'll be scattered among them little conversations which will try and just gently nudge people and make them a little bit more aware. I think it's the only thing you can do. I mean, the other thing I'd say is, in terms of the big man upstairs, I mean, the person who I found speaks just brilliantly about all of this is Obama, because he's very anti-woke and he speaks about it in a very subtle, calm way, as he always does. He's such a brilliant speaker. So I think, but then people just turn on him, and that's the thing. But he'll be able to bring some people around. I love listening to him.
Yeah, I got to read his book. Apparently, there's some great passages in there about him reading Foucault and using that to his advantage in dating. And he got a lot of criticism by people saying, "Wow, you're you read Foucault or you read philosophy and you just tried to use that to take advantage over women." I mean, maybe that is an honest interpretation. I haven't read it myself. Everything that I just told you is all that I know about it. So who knows? Maybe actually he was kind of predatory. Who knows? I got to read into it.
He was admitting in his own book about how he was predatory.
Yeah, it's unlikely. Yeah, there are they're good writers and speakers about this, and it's something that I get addicted to. One of the things that worries me, and this is something that I see happening with specific people whom I love very much, and I consider them buddies of mine, but there's also this concern that if all you do is associate yourself with right-wing people and you retweet people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, right? And you sort of just, isolate yourself from people who are probably more than willing to talk to you about this woke stuff, right? People who are very much on the left, like Vosh or like David Pakman. These people are anti-woke. They don't think it's anywhere near as big of a problem as you think it is, but they're pretty anti-woke. But because you're not talking to them, you're not having a conversation about them, you're not recognizing that they might have legitimate critiques of you, and you're only associating yourself with people like Rubin, then you're just making the anti-woke position a right-wing position. And it shouldn't be a right-wing position at all. Anti-woke shouldn't be a political position in the normal sense that we're accustomed to. It should just be a recognition that we all care about facts, we all care about a unified objective reality, and we strive to obtain that objective reality. And we recognize that maybe some level of victimization is necessary, but this crazy level of victimization is just so insane. So are you careful? I know that you're not like overtly like political on your YouTube channel or on your podcast specifically, but if you did have that platform, if you were yourself someone who is very much anti-woke and you started making a career out of it, would you be careful with who you associate with to make sure that you don't make your position a right-wing position, because that would make it less likely for someone on the left to actually listen to you?
Yeah, I think it's two reasons. There's that, and there's also the fear. So on the one hand, you're less likely to bring people around. I always think I had somebody on the podcast who's political called in the UK. He's quite well known, called Daniel Finkelstein. He's actually a lord, which is quite an outdated kind of thing, but he's Lord Daniel Finkelstein, and he is a conservative. Although the conservatives in the UK are somewhere between the Republicans and the Democrats politically. And he's amazing. He's like, you expect him to be this very old fashioned whatever with these old views, but he actually has very modern and progressive views. And he wrote a book called Everything in Moderation. And so he's exactly the kind of, but that's exactly how I feel. Everything in moderation. You've got so many different people. You've got your spinning plates trying to make everyone happy. You've got to everybody's got to go somewhere in the middle. But yeah, would I have somebody extreme? I wouldn't. That's the thing. The difference between making documentaries and podcasts. When you're making a documentary, and it's sort of the kind of thing I've done, which for people who haven't seen, it's a little bit like a Michael Moore kind of thing, but not political, or Louis Theroux if they know him, or Louis Theroux as they say in America. And that is, you can go and meet somebody who has very extreme views, and people don't relate you to that. People don't imagine that you share those views. If anything, you're holding them to account. When you invite somebody onto your podcast, it's you inviting them to have a conversation with you. And unless you make it explicit from the beginning that this is the debate between two people who fundamentally disagree, then it looks like you're platforming their views and you agree with them. So there were one or two people I looked at when researching the show who had views on trans, which I may or may not disagree with, but they were quite strong. And I just felt, I don't know if I want to have to deal with, firstly, losing listeners, secondly, being associated with their views, which, as I say, I may not disagree with. And look, part of me thinks that's a shame in itself. That's a sorry indictment of society, that I should be scared to speak to someone about some ideas for fear of some sort of retribution. And the other part of me thinks, well, you when you're with your family, you're with your friends, you've got to be careful not to offend people. That's part of being a human being. There's got to be some room for, don't want to offend people, don't want to, so I'm back and forward about it the whole time,
Mm-hmm. I often wonder, if I had the opportunity to speak with someone like Candace Owens, should the conversation be on the things that we agree about? So we're both very much against CRT, against the woke left, yada, yada, yada. But two problems. One, I think her diagnosis of the problem is way off. She would just say, oh, the entire left, the liberal style. Oh, I think that was
cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. She would say what?
Yeah. She would say very We're going to wait this out for a second.
Is it mine or yours, or both?
Uh-oh. Probably mine. My connection is terrible.
See, I got mine done. I got it whatevered, so it gets like 100 gigs.
All right. We might be back. Are we back?
I think so. I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Let's see. It might be because I have terrible connection, and it's not because we're cheap. We actually have the highest package available to us. But the problem is that I live just far enough from Los Angeles to the point. Oh my God. It's really bad, huh?
Yeah, you live just far enough from Los Angeles. We could try sort of closing it and opening it again, but then will you lose the stream?
I have no idea. Yeah. All right. The comments are saying it's mine because Andrew, you are as clear as day. It's just me.
What is going on?
Yeah, I'm telling you. Are we back now though? It seems like there's no
Seems better. People are saying, hey, you disappeared mid-live stream. Should I get it back somehow? I'm just running out of battery.
All right. I think we're good now. Are we?
Yeah, I think so.
It seems.
I'm going to start charging my phone and put it. Let me just do this. Well, sorry, listeners. I'll be back in 1 second.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I'll talk with everyone here. All right, Ghost Bunny. Yeah, I do have dumb connection, and the annoying thing is that I have the highest package available to me, but because I am just far enough away from like the place that I get reception from in LA, I'm just far enough away to the point where I get the worst possible package, but I'm close enough to the point where that has to be where I get my reception from. So I'm screwed. Like it's like the worst thing.
Vincent just had dumb connection. Vince, try leaving the room and Vince, coming back after restarting your network.
Better now. They're saying it's better now.
Those guys, they're watching the whole way through.
They're loyal fans. They're loyal fans. They're my simps, my simp army.
That's really nice. They better follow me. I don't have.
You know what? I gotta tell
Yeah.
them. Great, everyone here. Ronnie, Queen Fabi, Ghost Bunny. Go follow Andrew. You'll follow him on Twitter. The links should already be in the description of this video. Let me double check if they are.
And my YouTube, On the Edge with Andrew Gold.
Yeah. So his website is there. His Twitter is there. Go give him a follow. Oh, and hey, look who just joined. Dave Worley. Hey, Dave, how you doing, man?
Dave Worley.
Yeah, he does he has his own. So Dave Worley, good friend, he has his own YouTube channel in which he interviews atheists. Very good guy. There you go. You see, he's saying we simp for Vince. Yes.
That's nice. Oh, hang on. I've done because I've got my headphones in now because my girlfriend's back. Right. I can't. I was going to go live again on Instagram, but I just realized they won't hear you. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Look at that. Ronnie just gave you a follow. Thank you so much, Ronnie.
Yes. Thanks, Ronnie. I need to have, because you've got a lot more followers than I do. That'll be because you're younger and cooler, but I'll catch up.
Yeah, you got to catch up with my coolness.
Are people enjoying our conversation?
I hope so. What do you guys think? Is there a topic of conversation that you would like us to talk about, chat? So keep in mind, Andrew is very interdisciplinary. He's had physicists on his show. He's had James Lindsay on his show. He's had a bunch of completely people who have no connection whatsoever. So he can talk about anything, and I'll do my best to keep up.
Oh yeah, they should see my Exorcist film on the BBC.
Oh, for sure. Oh, and it's super interesting. In fact, that's when I saw that. That's when I realized I got to talk with this guy because this is one of the most fascinating documentaries that I've seen because I think it takes the lens of someone who's very secular, such as yourself, and you're recognizing or you're entering this world in which people are under the impression that they have demons inside their head and they're being exorcised from it by someone who seems pretty damn fraudulent. And it's one of the most fascinating things that I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he's a bastard, that guy. But I shouldn't say that because I've been warned not to say that stuff because of slander or whatever. But
oh, yikes! Yeah, but the one thing that I was saying that I wanted to bring in is that just very quickly, what I'm worried about is that if I have a conversation with someone like Candace Owens, because sure, we're both anti-woke, we don't like the regressive left, but she is so full-blown on the other side where she's saying, there are no issues, like there's no such thing as racism towards the Black community. There are no issues. It's actually Black people's fault at this point based on the position that they're in. Oof, I don't agree with that. I think there's certainly some structural and institutional issues that we need to address here in the United States. I am not. So if that's the case, should that then be the conversation, or should we just talk about the things that we agree on, or is there an intellectual obligation on my part to talk about the issues that we disagree with?
It's really hard, isn't it? I mean, the thing as well, and there are people like Candace, and I don't actually know that much about her and what she said. I've seen a few things every now and then. Okay, so being myself Jewish, right? There was a huge problem in the UK the last few years with anti-Semitism on the left. There was Jeremy Corbyn in charge of the Labour Party, which is traditionally centre-left, and it moved very far left. And with that, where you get very far left, you get anti-Semitism usually. As a big part of the whole anti-racism thing, which is part of the whole irony, is that the more anti-racist the left-wing organization might seem, the more likely they are to be anti-Semitic. And what would happen is you'd get a lot of people who were big fans of Labour, and they'd say, hang on, It's not anti-Semitic. How could it possibly be? Look at these Jewish people who love Corbyn and blah, 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 blah. And what was happening is there are a few people who I believe either just love Corbyn so much or love left-wing stuff so much that they were able to be blind to the anti-Semitism against them, or they saw a market, they saw a gap in the market as like one of the Jewish people who could be like, firstly, from a financial point of view, I could be the one that's doing the articles, I could be the figurehead of this kind of the Jew who doesn't think Labour is anti-Semitic, despite numerous neutral independent sources finding them to have been unlawfully racist against the Jewish community on a systemic level. And then also just because it's popularity, it's Twitter, you're going to get loads of follows, you're going to be the champion, So I'm always a little bit skeptical of these people who pop up. You get them who are, and they tend to be very well spoken and interesting. There are ex-Muslim ones or Muslim ones who are still Muslim, but talk very against the community. And when you see someone like Candace Owens, I wonder if she is, or somebody like her might be playing that card a little bit. It's, the thing is, if you're somebody who wants to prove what you and I want to, which is that the woke stuff has gone too far, you're going to love someone like Candace Owens, because she's perfect. She is black and she can talk from experience and go against the black community. Mm-hmm. She's got a career out of it. She's done fantastically well out of it. And let's be honest, you would love to have her on your podcast. I would love to have her on my podcast. We'll never get her because she's getting so many offers. More than anyone. We both got James Lindsay on this podcast, right? He's a huge name. We wouldn't get Candace Owens.
No.
And it's such a popular thing. So I'm just a bit wary of her, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I did have her on, this is actually raises the question where, are you willing to platform just about anybody? And if so, if you're platforming someone who has incredibly nefarious views, let's say you have a neo-Nazi person. Apparently, I can't say the name of. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about because it screws up the algorithm. But a neo-Nazi person.
Wow.
Is the idea that yes, okay, you can platform them, but then you have an intellectual responsibility to be able to read up on their views, understand the counter arguments, and present those counter arguments in a way that hopefully you are giving them enough rope to hang themselves with, per the classical, free speech absolutum verbiage.
So that's the thing, right? So you can do that, and that is sort of how the documentaries and stuff work. It's how I was able to go and interview this priest who I thought was a really bad guy and was taking advantage of people, taking women out of psychiatric homes and doing exorcisms on them and telling them they had demons instead of schizophrenia. Really horrible, awful stuff. And I was able to go in there, film with him for months, and then edit it all the way I wanted it to look, which is a bit sneaky. Now, if you're inviting someone in your podcast, as you say, it's very different. You are one-to-one having a conversation and showing this person's views to all of your listeners. And the second thing is you're probably not going to win because it's unlikely that you are as read up as they are on their statistics. If I have a climate denier on, if I have a climate change denier, if I have a flat earther, I just don't think I'm going to win. If they're like a popular one, if they're one, worth their salt, they actually know their research, I'm not going to win that. They'll have all sorts of statistics, sort of pseudoscience and things which I know are wrong. And then you might be thinking, okay, well, you don't lose that because they're talking nonsense and you're not, right? But then what's the point in debate, an argument? It's not a fair argument. If anything they say, I'm just going, yeah, but the Earth's round. And they're going, no, it's flat. Haven't you seen the curvature of blah, 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 blah? And I'll go, no, I haven't, but I know the Earth's round. And then they'll say, how do you know? And I'll go, well, scientists told me. And I don't know what you can get out of those people. Whereas a documentary, you can get entertainment. You can get, which is cynical, I suppose. But you can go in and you can make the person look stupid. And then you can speak, after speaking to them, you can go and speak to an expert and say, hey, this is what this person told me, like on camera. Tell me why they're wrong. And then you get the logical debate,
Yeah, you brought up a really interesting point there where it seems to be that you could have a nut job on the podcast, and they're probably, because they spend the vast majority of their career at this point researching those nut job whack job theories, they can get really macroscopic into these sorts of issues. And I've noticed this is a problem that I've actually been having recently when debating someone who is like really staunchly religious or a religious apologetic, where My understanding of religious literature, of the historicity of these religious texts, is very macroscopic. So I'm pretty well brought up on the distinction between the historical Jesus and the spiritual Jesus, the distinctions between those two. If Jesus did exist, what are the things that we are likely to believe that did and did not actually happen? The contradictions in some of the epistles. But the problem then becomes when you have someone who this is all they do, is that they'll be able to say, oh, well, if you read this specific passage from this specific book, it's like, oh, well, okay, I'd have to look into that specific passage. I don't know about specific passages in the way that you are describing
Right.
it. I've been doing this thing recently where I go on Omegle and I have fun and I'm drunk out of my mind. And I got into this debate with this Muslim guy who said that if you read the Bible, there's a specific passage in the Bible in which God is very obviously saying that Muhammad is the real Lord and not Jesus Christ. And you should, and so it's like, I need to read up on that. I don't have a counter argument against that because I never even knew that that was a thing.
Yeah.
And how could you possibly be expected to know all these small little details? And so what I'm often wondering is maybe because of that, because you run into that issue, as you said, with the climate change denier who just, for all we know, that the statistics are probably BS, but they have statistics and it makes us look silly when we don't know about them. So maybe the best way is to just do response videos where you'll see a video that someone like Candace
Yes.
Owens uploads, and maybe, well, now that we have that information, we could fact check that information and present
Sure.
my fact checked information as a response video. Maybe instead of a debate, that is the way to go.
I think it is. I just think it's a little bit snarky, isn't it? And it's also like shooting fish in a barrel, isn't it? You're just getting these idiots up. But it's probably a noble pursuit. I mean, it has to be done, doesn't it? People have to discredit these people. At the end of the day, let's be honest, though, the people who are watching your video are the ones who are already convinced that that person's wrong. You know, the ones that are laughing watching your video. It's very hard to convince somebody. And that's the question. That's what it is. It's how do you convince people? And it's impossible. The thing what you were saying about, yeah, I mean, the other person's always going to know more than you. And this is what happened to, did you see that Jordan Peterson interview with somebody, I don't remember her name, but she was a blonde woman from the UK on Channel 4 News. And it became famous because he totally annihilated her. And I don't mean, what was it?
Wasn't it Kathy Newman?
That's right. That's right. And it wasn't like, that thing, oh, so-and-so destroys so-and-so like you always see, and it's actually not the case. This really was the case. She had some really facile arguments. Now, the thing about that was she's obviously a journalist. She's not, as far as I know, an activist. She's not somebody who picks a side. So she was in this same situation where she has an interview with someone every week. She reads a different book every week. She's probably got a million things going on. It was impossible for her to be read up enough to be able to interview someone, particularly of his intellect. But she had no chance from the beginning, is what I'm saying. Not that Jordan Peterson is some fringe lunatic or anything like that. He's obviously very smart and has some fantastic arguments, which makes it even harder. She never stood a chance. I mean, he had another debate with another British woman called Helen Lewis. It was a GQ video. And Helen came on my podcast, actually. She's a feminist. And I felt that she actually outdid him, although the common reaction underneath, in the comments was all Jordan's destroyed her, blah, 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 blah. But it was a good debate between two very, very intelligent people who probably actually found they agreed on more than they disagreed on. That's the kind of debate you want. But those are two people who are just so on top of that game. But otherwise, it's just impossible. And I just think it's not. I think you're right. It's better to either do a reaction video, as you say, or to just have somebody on who has debated with those lunatics and say, oh, what happened when you debated this lunatic? And they'll tell you from their perspective. But, you're never going to get a neutral thing. I mean, we should be open-minded enough to listen to everyone's ideas. And then at what point do you say, yeah, but flat earth is just, it's ridiculous. So I don't know. At what point do you say your idea is just stupid, I'm not listening? And
it depends on what the cultural attitudes towards that position are. So we're at a point in time where the scientific consensus and the cultural consensus is that flat earth is silly. The earth is round. Most people believe that. 99.99% of scientists believe that. So I think we can say safely, we probably don't need to platform them. We're not saying we're not actively trying to deplatform them or trying to censor them, do anything legal. No. Just, we're past that. We don't have to be worried about that, right? But with something like the woke phenomenon, where I would say something like CRT or the postmodern interpretation of reality, I would say that should go the way of flat earther stuff. But because that's not where we're at, we're looking at it. We're at a point in time where academics take it seriously. The public consciousness at this point is taking it seriously. So we have to take it seriously, even though I believe that those views should be viewed as just as silly as something like flat Earth. But that's not the situation that we're in right now. So it's like you got to test the waters, right? Obviously. So I personally probably would not platform someone who is vehemently racist, because I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, most academics do not like racism. Most people on this planet do not like racism. It seems like something that we sort of pass by. We get people out there who, because of the beauty of the internet, will get these views sometimes spike up in popularity from time to time. But generally speaking, it's not something people don't really care about.
Yeah. And I think your point about how it's affecting, how we have to care because these other people have made us care. I mean, I feel like constantly get rejected from jobs because of it, because of critical race theory, because of that kind of thing. I mean, it's a horrible thing to happen to anyone, I think, to be told because of your skin color you can't have a job, to be told that to your face on multiple occasions. That said, I also understand that it's very different when it's because you're white than because you're black or whatever. Although I don't believe in the last 30, 40 years that anyone would have been told that so explicitly, that if they were black or Muslim or whatever it might be, that they can't have a job because of their skin color. So I'm angry about it. I'm about as angry as I can be. I've sort of talked about it so much that I probably seem quite calm now, but I really am angry about it. I feel like it's completely ruined my career in many ways. Not that it's still, it's still going, but I feel like now everything I do has to be off my own back. It has to be YouTube. It has to be podcasts, things where I'm in charge and nobody can say, we're going to put you down and put somebody. I mean, I've been told to my face countless times, like, hey, can we do your documentary? We love the idea and everything, but can some minority person be the presenter instead of you? Mm-hmm. And it's so offensive. So you're right. It's infiltrating society, and we want to just leave it behind. We want to just go like, okay, this is ridiculous. But that's society, and it goes in cycles. It's what happened with the Bolsheviks and the Soviets in Soviet Russia in 1912 or something, and it will happen again. It's happened around the world. I think people are not very bright, including myself, including you, all of us, but especially, I don't know, I think they're not that bright. They can't handle the nuances. They can't handle the complexities. And I think that's what it is. They're attracted to the idea of thinking they're smart. And that's the same on the far right and far left. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we'll see what happens, man. I guess the last thing I want to ask you before we end the stream, you mentioned that you're pretty neutral as a journalist. You do your best to make sure that you don't come off as an activist. But is there a threshold at which you just get so angry and you recognize that there has to be change, and I have to do something more than just being neutral about this sort of stuff? Is there a threshold that you're so angry to the point where now you have to switch from journalist to activist?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But again, you know what? It's really frustrating. It's what you said. It's because they made me. That's what I want to say. And I sound like a child, but it's like they made me do it because they've become activists. Every other journalist has become an activist, and I need to then stand up. The thing is, it's like anything, and I always say this, it's like any sort of bad thing. Nobody cares because we're all very selfish. We try not to be selfish. We try to tell ourselves we're not selfish. We have friends, family, girlfriends, whatever that we care a lot about, but in general, we're pretty selfish when it comes down to it. And that means that we only really care. We only really see things for what they are when they come for us, when they affect us. Would I be sitting here talking to you now about woke culture if it hadn't affected my career directly? Not in a million years. Not in a million years, because I went to university and I was one of those people you talked about who went to my studies, did my stuff, had my family to worry about. Wouldn't have crossed my mind. And I would have just heard anti-racism and I would have thought, oh, right, well, that sounds anti-racist, fine. So what I'm getting to is I just think we're selfish, I'm selfish, and I cared because of that about the woke stuff. And I suppose I did dip my toe into activism just by platforming woke people. I've selected, anti-woke people. I've selected them for my podcast. And there have been times as well, particularly in one episode, where I really did rant in the intro about anti-Semitism because it affects me, because it affects my family, because I felt unsafe in my own country for the first time in my life because I thought that an anti Semitic wannabe dictator on the left was about to get into power. I didn't really think he would, but I definitely felt things turning. I felt things happening, like, on the same day, roughly, there was a guy who accidentally made a joke about the royal family baby, the royal family having a baby, and he made a joke that it was a monkey, comedian at the BBC. It was just like because it was a picture of the royal family with a monkey that they'd been with. And the joke was that it was a monkey and it was silly. But people pointed out to him that the princess is apparently black, which a lot of people in the UK at that time didn't even realize, because I think she's mixed race and it's quite hard to know. He was instantly fired, and he had meant to show it was just a joke about a monkey. The guy had never said a racist thing in his life. Why would he suddenly become a racist at 55 and tell the world? On the same day, there was a black journalist at the BBC who said on a podcast that the Jews are fat, money-grabbing music agents or something in North London. Like, don't go with a fat, money-grabbing Jew. And he was at the BBC and he didn't get fired. So that happened in the same sort of time. And that just killed me. And I was just like, I can't. And it became a bit sort of, that particular podcast that week, I spoke to a Jewish musician about the whole thing, and I did get quite angry and ranty. But you know what? When I look back at that episode, it doesn't fill me with pride. I feel a bit embarrassed and a bit sheepish and a bit unprofessional. It's not one I would want people to go back and listen to, even if at the time it felt like something I had to do.
All right, well, Mr. Gold, I want to thank you endlessly for coming on. It's great to have you on, man. I feel like we can just, I don't know if I mentioned this, but like, when you were on my podcast for the first time, we ended up talking for hours after the podcast just ended. There's just so much we can easily talk about. But shout yourself out once more for the people who weren't here at the beginning of the podcast of this, because we got a lot more people joining afterwards.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, go to On the Edge with Andrew Gold. There's a YouTube channel that has about 5 people on it. But then there's the audio podcast you can find on Spotify and Apple and Google and all of those things. So it's nice if you go for a walk or something. And it's got stuff like just interesting, fascinating people. There's a lot of anti-woke stuff like what Vincent does, although not as good as his, of course. And then there's also like a psychopath that I speak to, a woman who just tells me what it's like to be a psychopath. There's a woman who remembers every moment of her life, including being in the womb. She remembers being born. There's just all sorts of crazy, weird, strange people. And then you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram on AndrewGold_OK. And I always chat to people, so just send me some messages and we'll get chatting.
Yeah, it's fun. And the links to all of that should already be the link to his Twitter and his website are in the description video below.
Great.
You could easily find all that stuff through there. Mr. Gold, thank you so much for joining me once more, man. Very quickly, why don't you should get merch? You should make merch. Why don't you have merch?
Really?
Yes.
I don't know. You know what? I've just got invited onto this like new social media thing called Pipt, like PIPT, and it's backed by like IBM or something. It's a big company, and they were supposed to actually launch a couple of days ago, but they're now launching in a few weeks, and it was done through my agent. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And they're only starting with 100 people. For some reason, they asked me. Maybe they couldn't get other people, so I've set up a whole page, and it's going to be out in a few weeks. And they're asking me, have you got any merch you want to set up? But I haven't even, who would get merch from, I just don't think anyone would get any, would they?
I would. It's pretty easy. There's like websites where you can, it's one of those things where it's, you might as well, I guess. It doesn't cost you any money. You do it through a website.
Have you done it?
Yeah, I have merch. So I do it through TeePublic. So on TeePublic, I just upload my logo and it tells me, okay, what do you want to put your logo on? I have it on mugs. I have it on pins. I have it on masks now at this point. So
and are people buying?
2 people bought it so far.
And so you've got, how much do you get from that, like percentage?
I got $11, a really very low percentage. But since it takes like 5 minutes to set it up, all right, sure, I'll do it. And I love very much, like Dave Worley, for instance, here in the chat. There we go. Like this guy. Yeah, he has a bunch of merch. Takes it. He actually puts a lot of care and love into his merch. So I bought some of his merch. I have a bunch of Atheist Republic merch. Susanna here is the CEO of Atheist Republic, and I guess the main reason I ask is because I'm addicted to buying people's merch, and so I'm like, why doesn't Andrew Gold have merch? I need to buy his merch.
I should get some merch. It'll get confused with the singer Andrew Gold. I bet he had loads of merch, but he died a few years ago.
You look at you. You're the next person.
I'm the next Andrew Gold. I'll look into it. I just also I feel. What'd you say?
I was like, was that insensitive? I shouldn't have said that.
He died, man, like 8 years ago. He's American. He was American, but I think he sung with the Beatles and stuff. But the problem is, and this is insensitive, but it annoys me because the first page of Google for a long time is probably going to be him. Maybe eventually me.
Who knows? Maybe eventually it will be you, especially if you keep coming out with these bangers of podcast episodes. That'll be good. Yeah. Well, anyways, man, thank you so much, dude. Everyone go subscribe to Andrew Gold. His YouTube channel deserves all the love that it's getting, as well as his podcast feeds, and give him a follow on Twitter. He's a great guy.